கேக்குது சார் கேக்குது சார். தேங்க்யூ சார். வாங்க வாங்க. ஓகே ஓகே தேங்க்யூ சார் தேங்க்யூ சார். சார் யூ கேன் ப்ரொசீட் சார்.
Yeah, yeah. Right. I hope you can see the slide on the screen, right?
Yes sir. Yes sir.
And the voice is clear enough.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So this is Jagarajan live from Malaysia, and a very good morning to everyone. And first, I would like to thank Professor Venkateshan and Professor Anbu for inviting me to connect through this internet webinar. Right. So without further delay, let me start the presentation. Right. So in today's presentation, I will be highlighting some of the key features of a unique nanoparticulate system, which is the liquid crystalline nanoparticle. Right. So we also say cubosomes or exosomes. So those are the two nanoform in the liquid crystalline nanoparticle category. Right. So well, in the recent past, or particularly in the drug delivery application, there are a lot of carriers are explored for improving the effectiveness as well as improving the safety of the drug. Right. So, and there is a huge potential in the market for achieving a better dosage form which complies with the required quality as well as with cost effective. Right. So today's talk I will be giving a brief on the nanomedicine, followed by what is self-assembled liquid crystalline nanoparticle, cubosome and exosome. Right, what are the formulation available in the market under this particular category? Right, so all this basic information will be more suitable for the viewers. I was informed that most of the audience either a third year BPharm or final year BPharm and postgraduate as well as PharmD. Right. So just to give an overview on and highlight, okay, this is an self-assembled liquid crystalline nanoparticle and it is having some potential for the drug delivery application. Right. And also I will share my research with this particular nanoparticulate system. So followed by our recent review on the hand sanitizer formulation. Right. So in the recent past with the pandemic situations, it is inevitable. We are mostly using hand sanitizer. Right. So I will just give an overview on the hand sanitizer in the perspective of pharmacy world. Right. And followed by the skills which is essential as a student when you are graduate. What are the skills is required when you are moving out to the in the world of career, or like what are the key skills we have to move forward for the 21st century, so which will be more useful for the students to improve their own skills or the attitude for their better career or the progress in their career. Right. Okay, so let me start with nanomedicine first. Right, most of you know what is nanomedicine or what is nanoparticle, right? The scale, if this is the broad spectrum of the scale ranging from a meter to an nanometer scale. So in that, when you say a nanoparticle, so mostly we say the size from 1 to 100 nanometer, we say nanoparticle, but in the recent past we also extend the scale up to 1000 nanometer, still we say like nanoparticulate system, right? So here we have, let me choose the pointer here. Okay, let's point. Right. So we have gold nanoparticle, carbon nanotubes, dendrimers, liposomes. These are some of the examples of widely explored nanoparticulate system. Right. Okay. So now we see what is the recent trends or what is the recent nanoparticulate system that climbs up to the market. So you know, for a dosage form or for a drug that comes into the market, it takes nearly like 15 to 20 years of lifetime, and with the $1 billion of expense, so one particular product is coming into the market, right? So here on the slide, on the figure, we can see different nanoparticulate system like nanosuspension, liposomes, polymeric nanoparticle, all varies in their size, morphology, and then shape. So we are using those advantages feature of the each particulate system to achieve a better therapeutic effectiveness, right? So among these various nanoparticulate system which is explored, so still liposomes is leading in the table. We have liposomes, nanocrystals or polymers. Those are the major particle that that is available in the market, right? So this is another table where you will see most of the nanoparticulate system that based on the type like inorganic, organic or biological, whether it is a 2-dimension or 3-dimension. So for example, when you say inorganic, so most widely studied is the gold nanoparticle. So when you go organic, we have micelles, liposome, dendrimers, right? And in the polymeric nanoparticles, there are a lot of research going on PLGR, PLA nanoparticulate system, right? So here is an overview of the various nanoparticulate system, right? And I repeat the same, like we have mostly nanocrystals or nanoliposomes or nanopolymers that reaches the market, right? So nearly 33% of the currently available marketed nanoparticulate formulations comes under liposomes, which contribute to 33%, followed by nanocrystals. Nanocrystals are nothing but the drug is size reduced to nano form and stabilized using certain surfactants, right? So which is also having a huge potential in improving the solubility as well as the bioavailability. So followed by emulsions and other nanoparticles like polymeric complexes or micelles. Okay, so these images is the transmission electron microscopes of some of the particles like liposomes or other inorganic nanoparticle. Okay, right. So now I move on to the system which I have been working since my PhD for the last 10 years. So which is self-assembled liquid crystalline systems, also called like cubosomes or exosomes, right? So the features of these particular systems is kind of unique feature, which is found by only a handful of lipids. So when the lipids are added into the water at certain temperature, it forms like a self-assembly into various unique features or various structures like lamellar structures or spongy structures or hexagonal structure or bicontinuous structures. So these images is the transmitted electron microscopic image, or we say like we say like freeze-dried transmission electron microscope image. So under this particular self-assembled category, so we have various type of systems, which is bicontinuous cubic or hexagonal. So these are the two major particle which is widely studied. When you say bicontinuous cubic, the structure resembles like a cubic structure. It's like a 3-dimensional structure, like a typical cube. So inside the cube, it is having a lot of water channels as well as lipid bilayer. So the lipid bilayer you can compare with the liposomes. However, these lipid bilayers are like a continuously arranged structure, like you can compare with an honeycomb like structure. So in the honeycomb, like you have the matrix as well as the honey. The honey is the one we can say like a water channel, and the matrix is can say the lipid bilayer. And because of these particular features, the surface area is higher, and we can use this particular structure for various drug delivery application. So among these four types of the phases, like bicontinuous cubic phase or hexagonal phase or micellar space or spongy space, so most widely used are the bicontinuous cubic or the hexagonal phase. And as I said earlier, only a handful of lipids has the property of forming this self-assembled liquid crystalline system. So most widely used are the one which form self-assembled liquid crystalline system is the monovolene, also called as glyceryl monovolate. Okay, it's a fatty acid esterified with glycerol monovolate or monovolene. It's called monovolene. It's an amphiphilic liquid, right? So these amphiphilic liquids assemble into various forms like lamellar phase, or there are various type of the cubic phase like primitive cubic phase or double diamond cubic phase, hexagonal phase, or microemulsions. I will not go in detail of this physical structure. It's a pure physics involved in that, where the critical process parameter, if you say it's equal 1, it's the curve of planar is almost plane, right? So but these features can be used for the drug delivery application, and we can alter the structure based on the temperature as well as the other excipients you're adding to the system, as well as different water concentration, right? Okay, right. So last year we have published one review article in Drug Discovery Today based on this cubosome and exosome, right? So so far we have seen various types of systems or various types of phases that is present in the self-assembled liquid crystalline system, right? So among the system, cubosome and exosome having this particular structure, like I repeat the same structure, it is having like a honeycomb-like structure. So this particular circle denotes the water channel, and the blue color one is the lipid bilayer. And the hexagonal structure, it is also a three-dimensional structure where it resembles like you are arranging a cylinders of lipid bilayers in a hexagonal form, right? So that is exosome. So if you magnify this structure, you will see this particular lipid bilayer, and then there are two water channels. One is in inside water channel and outside water channel. So what is the key feature of this particular system? So we know that liposome is the one that is having the property of encapsulating both hydrophobic drug as well as the hydrophilic drug. So similar to the liposomes, the cubosomes or exosome also having an unique features. It can load both hydrophobic drug as well as the hydrophilic drug. And usually we need a surfactant to stabilize this particular structure, and we mostly use poloxamer 407 as the surfactant for this stabilizing this particular structure. Okay, and the other feature is the higher membrane surface area. The surface area is quite large, and that allows an improved encapsulation or improvement in the solubility of the active drugs. Okay, right. So what are the key features? So with that features which we have discussed in the previous slide, so it is having a good property of improving the solubility of poorly soluble drug, and we can alter the structure so that we can achieve and manipulate a drug release, or altering, or we can have a control on the structure, and based depends on our quality requirement. We can alter the structure and we can achieve different efficiency of the system. For example, if you want to alter the drug release, when you alter the structure, you can achieve a difference in the drug release, right? So because of the higher surface area and of the lipid bilayer, we can achieve a better drug loading efficiency, and that also allows the drug to deliver in a sustained release manner. And obviously most of the nanoparticulate system has the enhanced bioavailability property. Also it can improve the stability of certain drugs which is having poor stability issues, so we can encapsulate into the systems and we can prevent the stability problem occur with the drug, and we can use for theranostic applications. Okay, so what is theranostic? Theranostic is certain carriers we are using for dual purpose, for both therapy as well as the diagnostic purpose. So by altering the drug release, or you are coating sorry, not altering the drug release, altering the structure, or you are coating the nanoparticulate structure with certain diagnostic probe, so you can use for both delivering the drug as well as for the diagnostics purpose. Okay, and the surface of the nanoparticle systems can be engineered, meaning that so you can alter, you can combine with certain ligands, or if suppose you are going for an active targeting, you can actually surface modified with the ligand suitable for targeting, for example certain cancer cells. You can go for this, you can take advantage of this multifunctional property to specifically bind those cancer cell specific ligand on the surface of the nanoparticle, right? And so whatever the carrier systems or any type of dosage forms, we also look into the perspective of cost effective. So minimizing the cost in terms of the material as well as the manufacturing cost. And we can say that this particular system also is quite cost effective, and the manufacturing process is straightforward or quite simple, right? So now we will see what are the preparation method usually we employ for the preparation of this cubosome or exosomes. So there are two widely used methods. One is a top-down approach. So in case of top-down approach, we combine the aqueous phase, which is nothing but the water, and with the oil phase, which is the lipid, the molten lipid. We also add the surfactant either to the aqueous phase or to the oil phase, and then after mixing, we achieve a coarse dispersion. So the coarse dispersion is subjected to high energy input. For mostly we use sonication, or sometimes we use homogenization. So without the high energy input such as homogenization or the sonication, we cannot achieve the nanoparticle. Okay, right. So in case of bottom-up approach, we add the lipid to a hydrotrope. So usually we use ethanol, and then so once the lipid is combined with the hydrotrope, we add to the aqueous phase, and then we do the stirring or the sonications, and we can achieve a liquid crystal nanoparticle. Right. So here we are using the advantage is that we are minimizing the high energy input with the use of hydrotrope, but relatively it depends on the concentration of the lipid and the volume of the final dosage form that will determine the nanoparticle size or the shape. However, we can say the most popular approach is using the top-down approach. Okay, right. So any dosage forms, once you are developing, we always characterize to assess its quality, right? So in case of liquid crystalline nanoparticle, we do the normal characterization for all the nanoparticle, like measuring the size, polydispersity index, as well as measuring the zeta potential. And we also do the cryogenic transmission electron microscopic visualization or morphological evaluation, along with the small angle X-ray scattering, also known as SAX. So what you will get from the small angle X-ray scattering is the structure, the internal structure or the inner structure, whether it is a cubosome or an exosome, that can be easily confirmed with the small angle X-ray scattering. So the small angle X-ray scattering is a very useful technique to identify or to characterize the crystalline structure in the liquid state. Okay. So then we do the in vitro drug release as well as the drug loading efficiency test, right? Then we go for the in vitro cellular. In the recent past, like the in vitro cellular is very popular. We always do before going to the in vivo, we test with the cell lines, right? So we do the in vitro and then we followed by the in vivo, right? Okay. So now I will give few or like two products that is already in the market based on the liquid crystalline system, right? So one of the system, one of the formulation is the Episil. It's called Episil. It is used for the cancer patient to minimize the oral mucosal pain, right? So these particular dosage forms relieves pain for nearly 8 hours. So the mechanism is like once you apply this, the liquid form of this dosage form, immediately the liquid which is having a certain lipid which can forms liquid crystalline network. So once it is applied on the oral mucosa, it will absorb the water that present in the saliva and then it forms like a thick gel coating on the oral mucosa. So once the oral mucosa is coated with a thick mucosal layer of this particular lipid, the patient will feel comfort without any pain at least for 8 hours, right? So another formulation in the market is the fluid crystal nanoparticle or fluid crystal injection depot. So both these nanoparticle and then injection depot having the advantage of delivering the drug for longer duration of time. So in case of fluid crystal injection depot, so it's very similar to the previous one, which is Episil. So the liquid form of the lipid is injected into the subcutaneous. So it will absorb the water that present in the subcutaneous tissue and it will form like a thick gel, and slowly the matrix will be eroded and then the drug is released from the matrix. So by this we can achieve a drug release for like maybe a 1 month or 2 month or 3 month period of time, depends on the dose as well as the concentration of the lipid we are using. Okay. So fluid crystal nanoparticle, we can use this nanoparticle for improving or for high solubilization capacity of drug substance, as well as it is having good systemic and local tolerability. Okay, so also used for topical application as well. So it's having wide range of applications, right? So what is the future perspective or the areas where we can work on this particular system? So we know that stabilizer is very essential for stabilizing this particular nanoparticle. We use Poloxamine 407. So when we can alter the stabilizer with cell targeting property, so in one go we can achieve a better outcome, like using stabilizer for the stabilizing the nanoparticle, as well as the same stabilizer is used for the cell targeting property, right? And altering the pore size of the lipid bilayer or the water channel, we can achieve a difference in the effectiveness of the drug release. Okay, and exploring the fate of nanoparticle, meaning that what is the toxicity profile of this particular nanoparticle in various route of drug administration. Still a lot of research has to be explored for this career. And then industrial manufacturing process, like so amplifying from the laboratory scale to the industrial scale is it's a very challenging thing, right? So how we can manufacture this particular nanoparticle in industrial scale, and toxicity in terms of the clinical trials. Okay, right. So far we have seen an overview of the liquid crystalline nanoparticle, how we can prepare, characterize, and what are the future perspective. So now I move to the second part of my presentation, sharing my research experience. This research was performed by Miss Lo Yenshan. She is my postgraduate student in IMU, and she has done this research during her master in molecular medicine. So, and recently it was published in Journal of Drug Delivery Science and Technology. Okay, so right, so we used berberine. Berberine is nothing but it's called Chinese curcumin, which is having very similar property with the Indian curcumin, right? Which is also having a lot of therapeutic effectivity and therapeutic activity like lipid lowering, neuroprotection. So we can have like a list of therapeutic property very similar to the curcumin, right? And it is also having the same problem like curcumin. Curcumin, one of the problem in terms of dosage form development is the solubility issue, which is curcumin is well known for poor solubility. Similar to that, berberine is also having low solubility, right? So our objective is to improve the solubility of berberine using this particular nanoparticulate system, and we tested this nanoparticulate system against the MCF7 cell line, which is the breast cancer cell line. Okay, right? So here is a summary of our method. We prepare, and then we did all the preliminary characterization, and then we optimized the formulation. Then we assessed the formulation for the cell line cellular uptake, as well as we performed in the MCF7 cell line for the anti-cancer activity, right? So I will not go in detail of all the methods. Instead, I will show our key findings or the results, right? So to increase the solubility of the berberine, we first tested with the several co-surfactants, or we can say excipients, which is widely used in the industry as well, like 2-in-80, 2-in-85, PEG 400, and transcutal P. So we also tried with many other excipients. The data was not shown here. So only the data is shown for 5, where at least we can able to see some solubility, right? So out of the various excipients tried, the highest solubility was achieved with polyethylene glycol 400 and transcutal P. So we decided we will use these two excipients to formulate the berberine loaded liquid crystalline nanoparticle, right? So on the right hand side, you can see that transmission electron microscopic image of our nanoparticulate system, in which we can able to see a cubic like structure, by which we confirm like most of the nanoparticles having a cubic structure, and we can say it's like a cubosome type of liquid crystalline nanoparticle, right? So here is the table that showing the basic characterization parameter. So the size is around 180 to 190 nanometer with a good PDI value lower than 0.3, indicating that it is having a good dispersibility. And with the surface charge of negative 20, and only with the transcutal HP, then it is having negative 9, right? So let me show the cellular uptake. The cellular uptake is one of the method to assess whether the drug is actually reaching inside the cell. And most widely studied cell is the CACWA2 cell. So we treated the CACWA2 cell with our formulation with different concentration, 2 microgram and so 2 micromolar and 25 micromolar, and we didn't see any dose respective increase in the cellular uptake, because the lower concentration achieved a higher cellular uptake compared with the higher concentration. So if you see the concentration at 2 micromole of berberine, so the berberine with the transcutal P is having higher cellular uptake in the CACWA2 cell line, right? And whereas with the higher concentration, although with the LCN there is a higher uptake, but there is no difference among the formulation for the higher concentration of berberine prepared with various formulation. Okay, so we assess the morphological feature of the cellular uptake with the MCF7 cell line. We observe the fluorescent intensity. So higher the fluorescent intensity indicates that more cellular uptake of the liquid crystalline nanoparticle. So for most of the formulation, you can see the higher intensity of the cell with the green fluorescence. And here I want to highlight that the berberine itself having a fluorescent property, so we don't need an additional fluorescent probe to load into the nanoparticle system. So with these two results, we can say that the nanoparticle has significantly improved the cellular uptake of berberine. Okay, and we also assessed the cell cycle distribution, right? So in case of cell cycle distribution, percentage of G1 phase is higher for the treated one, as well as the percentage of G0 phase. So which indicating that we can achieve a better anti-cancer property with this formulation. Okay, right. So what are the key findings? So we achieved the desired nanoparticle lower than 200 nanometer with a good PDI value, a negative charge surface, and cellular uptake is significantly higher in the Kakoto cell lines. In the same way, cellular uptake with the MCF7 cell line is higher, right? And higher percentage is observed with higher percentage of distribution is observed with G0 and G1 phase of the cell cycle, right? So with all these findings, we concluded that the nanoparticle has a significant effect in increasing the solubility of the berberine, as well as enhancing the anti-cancer property of the berberine in the MCF7 cell lines. Okay, so these are our key findings, and these are research is already published. You can have a look in the JDDST journal, right? Okay, right. So next, I will move on to the hand sanitizer, right? So recently we published a review on the hand sanitizer, how it is effective against various various microorganisms, irrespective of bacteria or virus. So whatever the recent research on the hand sanitizer effective efficacy against the coronavirus or some other virus, we have comprehensively, or we have extensively reviewed, and then we have discussed in this research review article. So under the title hand sanitizer, a review on formulation aspect, adverse effect and regulations, right? So it's a free access. You can read the article, and then you can get whatever the information you require. So basically the hand sanitizer, we have different types like a gel form or foam or cream or spray and wipe. So mostly we use like a spray type, or like kind of foam when you are washing, right? So also I want to highlight that although the hand sanitizer is proven to be very effective against or the prevention of the the transmission of the virus, at the same time I also highlight, like, if you use the soap for hand washing, it is also very effective. So according to the regulations, or most of the health regulation authority, whether in a hospital settings or like in the normal house settings or whatever the settings, if you can access the soap and water is the best way to make or it's the best way to maintain your hand hygiene. So if it's not available, then you can use the hand sanitizer, right? And so hand sanitizer formulation we classify into two broad categories. One is alcohol based and alcohol free. So we say ABHS, which is alcohol based hand sanitizer. So in case of alcohol based hand sanitizer, according to the regulation, so mostly we are using 60 to 95% volume by volume of alcohol. Either it may be ethanol or isopropanol along combined with hydrogen peroxide. If in case of alcohol free, we can use benzalkonium chloride or chlorhexidine, chloroxylenol, or mostly like we say quaternary ammonium compound, which is benzalkonium chloride or triclosan, right? So in both the formulation, the common thing we use is glycerin. So you know what is the application of glycerin? It's an humectant that prevents the drying of the formulation, right? And then certain fragrance or coloring agents. These are for the organoleptic property. In pharmaceutical term, we say organoleptic property, or for the aesthetic purpose, right? In the same article, we also given this table. This table has given three formulations based on the World Health Organization recommendations or the United States Pharmacopoeia recommendations, right? So these three formulation varies in the ethanol or isopropyl alcohol with a different concentration, and in these formulations, the common thing is the hydrogen peroxide and glycerol. Okay, right? So these are the three formulations. So using the WHO recommendations, we can, if our organization or any organization is permittable to formulate the formulation, then we can use these recommendations, and then we can prepare our in-house formulation, provided we have to get the approval from whatever the regulatory authorities, right? And I also need to acknowledge my okay. So this is the screenshot of the article, right? So I acknowledge my two final year B Pharm student, Jane and Pei, along with my collaborators, Dr. Jagadish. I think he has given the webinar previously, right? And Professor Jason and Dr. Naga, right? So with that acknowledgement, okay. So let me move on to a specific area, or like a general information which I would like to share with the students, right? So when you are graduating, or like after graduation, if you are applying for any job, what are the essential skill the employer will be looking into a CV or during the interview or whatever it may be, right? So I'm going to give you an overview on what are the skills that is really needed, or you need to improve yourself when you are approaching for any job, right? So the first thing is critical thinking or problem solving, right? So we study extensively during our undergraduate or postgraduate. We spend a lot of times in library, and then we refer all the books. We gain our knowledge, and then we pass the exam, and even some of them, like, we pass the exam with distinction, right? So the one, I mean, since I'm also from the same part of India, right? So I also have the same experience, like I refer a lot of books, and then I pass the exam, having enough knowledge, right? The key thing is how you are going to apply that knowledge when you are into a situation where you are really seeing the problem. Whether you are in the industry or in academia or in a marketing and sales, or whichever the platform you are in, the employer is having certain, I would not say problem, it's a task, right? So you are assigned with certain task. So how you are going to crack, or how you are going to fix the task, how you are going to do better with the task, is where your knowledge will be applied there. So you need to be very good in critical thinking or problem solving skills, right? So this skill is one of the primary skills, whichever the job you are in industry or academia or marketing or whatever the job you are in. Okay, so this will follow you, right? And second thing is oral and written communications, as well as your verbal communication or your body language. So all these matters, right? So we know that okay, we love our mother language very much. I don't deny with that, because I also do the same, right? The world is not seeing at that. So when you are going outside, or when you are in an industry or any place, and you are in a meeting, or you are in a job interview, they will see these particular communications. When you are going higher level, you need to have a good command of the communications, particularly good commanding of English language, right? As well as the written communication, the proper email, how you are communicating, both will be assessed. So once you are applying for a job application, you will write an email and everything, right? So that's a written communication. And when you are in the interview, you will be expressing your thoughts and everything, right? So you are having knowledge, you are having skill, and you are having a real solution for the problem. But if you could not able to express those things, then the skill which you are having may not be very useful to that particular environment, right? So let me compare my example. Until my undergraduate, I don't speak in English as well, to be frank, right? So we are in that environment, like, but it's not the end, right? You need to keep trying, communicating. Initially you will face difficulties, right? So it's all like it's not like practice only. You will get those communication, right? So don't feel bad that okay, I am from Tamil medium. There is no like a certain thing like Tamil medium or English medium, right? If you put effort more, you can achieve with the better communications, right? So this is what information we have obtained from most of the successful person, right? And then teamwork and collaboration. This is another important thing. So you are being a healthcare worker. If you are in a hospital setting, you will be working with a different team, right? So you should know how to collaborate with each team. You may be good at something, the other person will be good at something. As a team, we have to work together to achieve the task, like how Indian cricket team work together to win the cup the same way, right? So we need bowlers, we need fielders, we need batsmen, right? So you cannot say I am a batsman, I am great. Hey, I am a bowler, I take wickets, I am great. So it's not going to work on that team, right? So you need to know how to collaborate with each member, right? In the same way, like how cricket team works, how to utilize the key skills of each person, right? So this is what going to be an essential when you are in an like an industry or the real working situations. And then diversity, right? So you will see different people with different background, with different language speaking people from different ethnic background, all these things, right? So we have to limit our own proudness, and then at the same time we have to appreciate the others greatness as well. So this is what diversity is. Okay. And creativity and innovations, it's an inevitable another skill. You have to be very creative. For example, I take the Google CEO, Mr. Sundar Pichai, right? So he grown up from a very normal background, and then he became the CEO of Google, right? So do you think which key skill has he has to reach that much height or this thing? He's keep on innovating in many things. The one we are using, the Chrome or Google Maps, or he keep on innovating. So I'm not telling that we can reach up to that point. At least whatever the working place there is, we can innovate small thing. Even a small progress will take you to a good progress, right? So we have to be innovative, and then we have to progress accordingly. And then this next thing is lifelong learning. Okay, I completed B Farm. Here is my college ends, and no more learning. It's not like that. So if you go to workplace, you are assigned with a new task, right? There you will learn more. The working skills, or you will be given with appropriate training, as well as the self-direction or self-directed learning is more important. It is up to you. Like you have to be self-motivated, and you have to show interest in learning those things, right? So it's called lifelong learning or self-direction. Okay, so whichever the area you are in, we have to maintain certain professionalisms. We have to follow the ethics recommended by the employer, and last but not least, we have to be socially responsible citizen, right? So all these skills is very essential. We have to improve ourselves. Okay, right? I would say that whatever the knowledge we are gaining during the college days in terms of the subject knowledge, I would say it's sufficient enough. But apart from that, those subject knowledge, we also need to develop all those skills. If you are embarking, or if you want to have a good career, or you want to be a more successful person. Okay, right. So those are the other carriers, and the other most important feature is the empathy. We say there are two terms like intelligence, emotional intelligence, and intelligence quotient, like IQ and EQ. The most successful persons have good balance in achieving the emotional, I mean, good control of their own emotion. They have good control of their own thought, and they keep on, they are motivated and they make the right decision. And so emotional intelligence is another important thing we have to acquire. Okay, right. So beside everything, the most important thing is the attitude, right? So without the, although you are having skills and everything, without right attitude, you may not end up in a good career, I would say, right? So attitude is everything, right? Before I conclude my presentation, I just share a few information about International Medical University, which is called IMU. So IMU is the place where currently I'm working for the last 5 years, right? It is one of the, it is the first private pharmacy school in Malaysia. They started with the MPharm twin program with the University of Strathclyde, UK, and BPharm was started in 2004. And we also have BSc Pharmaceutical Chemistry. This particular course is more towards the pharmaceutical industry, and we also have three postgraduate program: MS in Analytical Pharmaceutical Chemistry, Molecular Medicine, as well as Pharmacy Practice. So this is the overview of the School of Pharmacy, right? So in case of BPharm, it's very similar with our Indian BPharm degree. It's a 4 years undergraduate program. But here we have two streams. One, 4 years you can study in IMU, or 2 years in IMU and 2 years with partner medical school, either in Australia or New Zealand. So we also have BSc Pharmaceutical Chemistry 3 years, right? So this is the simple overview of the school from where I am currently working on, right? So finally, to conclude my presentation, I would like to give this message. It's not my message, actually. This is the message I follow, or I would say, like, this is the famous quote I like from our former president, Dr. Abdul Kalam, a statesman as well as a great scientist. We are blessed with this great human during our period, right? So he says that there is no fail. Fail means first attempt in learning, right? And so we have to keep trying. We should not stop with any failure, and there is no end, and effort never dies. So we have to keep our effort, constant effort, although we fail, and we have to look for the next opportunity. If one opportunity is not clicking, we have to look for the next opportunity. It's a lifelong learning process, right? Okay. So although this COVID-19, at this situation, we may experience all these tough situations. So we pray to the God, and then hope the situation will be normal at the earliest possible, right? Okay. So with that, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Also, I would like to thank Professor Venkateshan as well as the management committee of AKCP College, as well as Professor Anbu for assisting in all those technical help. And last but not least, thank you very much for all the listeners. Okay. And with that, I conclude the session and I pass the session to Professor Anbu. So I'm happy to have questions, right? So thank you very much for listening. Chat box open. Yes. Okay. Let me see. All right. Right. So, well, okay, this is a good question, I would say. Um, Zeta potential is the value for any dispersion that will affect the stability, right? So based on the zeta potential value, we can say whether the formulation is stable or not, right? So the value expected is either a higher negative value or a higher positive value, where the higher positive value among the particle will maintain a discrete particle that result in the repulsion between the particle. Let's say like how positive and positive will repel in the same way, right? And in case of liquid crystalline nanoparticle, why it is negative is because the fatty acid that present in the surface is actually is contributing to the negative charge, right? So, for example, you take liposomes. Liposomes also will have a negatively charged surface. So the charge is contribute because of the chemical compound present on the surface of the nanoparticle system, right? So in case of liquid crystalline nanoparticle, negative charge is because of the monovolene, which is known as fatty acid. Yeah, right. How can we build that optimum value into the formulation, right? So how we can build optimum into the formulation, right? Any value that is very close to zero, even the value which I have shown is negative 20, negative 18, or negative 9. Negative 9 is still not that much stable. So when the value is like higher than negative 20 or negative 25, we can say it is very stable. Or like plus 25 is, we can say it is very stable. So any when you are developing the formulation, it is advised to achieve a higher value, either in terms of negative or positive. There you will achieve a stable formulation. Yeah, I'm done with answering the question. Any other questions? Okay, it's okay. The question is nanoformulation will eradicate or will minimize the side effects, right? The question is too general actually. So nanoformulations, there are a lot of features available with each type of nanoformulation, right? So to address this particular question, whether nanoformulation will have or will minimize the side effect or not, right? So the nano formulation we constantly develop to the side effects is it may be because of any particular property, right? For example, we want to administer 500 milligram of paracetamol, by which we can achieve a better therapeutic effects as well as it result in certain side effects. The concentration of the drug which we are using is for both, I mean, for the therapeutic purpose, also it is having certain side effects. In case of nanoformulation, if we can reduce the concentration of the drug so that we can achieve concentration which is appropriate for the therapeutic effect, right? And thereby we can minimize the side effects. And secondly, suppose you are using the nanoformulation particularly for the cancer target, right? I said active targeting. Active targeting means you are specifically targeting the cancer. You are delivering the drug to the cancer cell, not to the other cell. So if you are using certain active targeting, you can deliver the nanoparticle to the cancer cell, and you can minimize side effect because you are not delivering the drug to the other normal cells. Right. So this is one aspect, and previously I have discussed about those. That is another aspect. Similarly, there are a lot of aspects we can discuss with nanoformulation, provided depends on which drug we are using and what is the side effect of the drug and which carrier we are using, how the carrier will address those side effects, right? So too general, we cannot specifically pinpoint and say, okay, this particular carrier will have this advantage. Yeah, 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 yes, yeah, correct. Right. Okay, that is a very fair question, and I like the question. Right. So how we can optimize since the surface area is very high and it's going to increase the free energy and it causes a lot of stability issues, right? So first thing we can use an suitable surfactant, right? So the surfactant, works in different mechanism, right? So I don't want to go in detail because as a pharmacy student, most of us we know how the surfactant works, right? So we use surfactant at certain concentration because we run a trial, several trial, and then we achieve a stable formulation, right? And zeta potential is another value that can that where we can have a good control on the stability. And third thing, the concentration of the liquid. Okay, the concentration of the lipid surfactant as well as maintaining the zeta. So all these contributes to the stability of the formulation. Yeah. So next question. Suitable dosage. I think the question is not clear enough. Which is the suitable dosage for? All right. Okay. So so far we are having in the form of dispersion. Okay. So this dispersion we can use for systemic. I mean, you can use for parenteral, or you can use as a dispersion for the oral administration. So we can use mostly we are using three major routes: is oral, parenteral, and
AKCP, sir.
yeah. Good morning, Abdul.
Sir, actually, the drug is in pro-drug nature. The drug is pro-drug nature.
Okay.
Sir, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can. Yeah, please.
Actually, sir, the drug is in pro-drug. If your drug is pro-drug, you have prepare a nanocrystal.
Okay.
Can you suggest me a dosage form for nanocrystal further development, sir? Actually, it is converted in to active form in the liver, so we can't give it as an parenteral route.
Okay.
The oral bioavailability also around 28 to 30% only.
Okay.
So after nanocrystal formulation, the solubility is enhanced. The thing is, I couldn't develop my project further. So can you suggest me a best dosage form for pro-drug nanocrystal?
Okay. Okay. From your question, what I understood is you have prepared sorry, there was an interruption. Okay. Right. Yeah. Dr. Abdul. Yeah. So you have prepared nanocrystals, which is drugs, and you are finding difficulty in converting the pro drug to a suitable drug, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I mean, in the normal body mechanism, it has to convert pro drug to drug. You have already formulated with a pro drug of nanocrystals, but you cannot able to achieve and desired concentration of drug in the plasma, right? So that's
Yes,
what I understood. So
Yes, sir.
here the first thing is you have achieved improved solubility of the pro drug.
Yes, sir.
Right. So if I see in a different way. So although in the formulation, the difficult task is like improving the bioavailability or improving the solubility. So although we can able to achieve the better solubility as well as better bioavailability. So once the drug is going to the liver, it has to metabolize to the active drug, right?
Yes, sir.
Correct. So why it is not converting in the sense like I see in the pharmacological perspective, if we have a control like without the formulation nanocrystals, whether the drug you can inject parenterally and then you check whether the drug is actually it is converting into active drug. So then we can confirm that these nanocrystals, although it is bioavailability active, I mean enhancing the bioavailability, but it is not converting into active. So we can correlate those mechanism with the parentally administered drug with your formulation.
Okay, sir.
With that lead, I think it makes. I mean, with that lead, we at least we will know whether is the problem with the formulation or is problem with the converting into the active drug.
Active drug. Yes, sir.
Right. I don't know whether you have done those study or not. If you have done, you can share the result. Then we can look into the alternate formulation. Right. At the same time, like you can have my email ID. It's available. I will share the email ID, so you can contact any time in terms of formulation. I can assist you, or I can give some recommendation, whichever possible. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, one more doubt, sir. Actually, you talked about the structure tunability, now, sir.
Yeah.
So by using structure tunability, it is possible to convert my pro-drug to active drug, sir. Is there any possibility?
Structure tunability is with only the liquid crystalline structure. In case of yours one, you prepared if I'm not mistaken, how you prepare the nanocrystals, you size reduce the bulk drug into nano form, right?
Yes, sir. Actually, I done it in bottom-up method, sir. Actually.
Okay, yeah, right. So you have used certain high energy input and then you size reduced, right?
Yes, sir.
So
yes,
here the structure means like the drug itself is in the nano form. The one which I show the structure tunability is from the lipid combined with the water and certain temperature and the structure, it is having the property. So in your case, the structure tunability will not apply. Why? Because you are having a bulk of drug, you are size reducing into nano size drug.
Yes, sir.
So you cannot tune the structure because it is already in the crystalline structure.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
okay, sir. One more doubt.
You have worked on nanocrystals.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more doubt, sir. In your project, have you done a solubility test pre-formulation or the post-formulation, sir?
We have done with the pre-formulation.
Okay, sir. So before preparing your nanocrystal, you have done the solubility test.
Yeah. We have done the solubility with each ingredient. Then we have chosen those excipients, as well as we also know that these excipients will not alter the formation of the liquid crystalline nanoparticle.
Okay, sir. Sir, have you mentioned your solubility procedure in your journal, sir? Journal publication?
We have given the solubility method. We use the shake flask method. You can get those procedure in that. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any more questions? So if no more question, I pass the session to back to Professor Anbu. Yeah, thank you, Anbu.
Can you hear my voice? Can you hear my voice, sir? Hello? Sir? Professor Tyagarajan, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir, clearly. Yes.
So can you hear, sir? Can you hear my voice, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir, we had a wonderful and informative. Sir, we had a wonderful and informative session, sir.
Yeah, most.
Your presentation went on very well.
Yeah, thank you.
On behalf of our management of AKC, on behalf of our management of Arulmi Kalasning College of Pharmacy, hereby express my wholehearted thanks to you and your management for giving us such a wonderful and informative presentation, elaborated presentation about the.
Welcome. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. About the assembled liquid crystalline nanoparticles as a drug delivery carrier. Sir, in future also, let's have a good collaboration for the betterment and development of our students' careers, sir.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. Thank you, Anbu. Right. So yeah. So I was enjoying the presentation, and thank you all for the participant, and thank you for you as well. Okay. Yeah. So shall I leave the meeting? Yeah. Thank you, Anbu.